She was the beautiful woman that men lusted after.
But drugs took her over the edge.
It was progressing to a bad place.
And her major league husband accused her of spousal abuse.
He had bruisings and marks from the high heels.
It's the story you haven't heard of a Hollywood heartbreaker.
I think that she just pushed it to the extreme.
Tawny Kitaen, tonight at 9 on an all-new E! True Hollywood Story.
Were splashed across the tabloids. In addition to juggling his complicated personal life, Simpson faced the challenge of raising two teenagers.
I did what I did, and I'm here to suffer the consequences or reap the benefits.
Tawny Kitaen makes no apologies for living life her way.
I think she completely understood that she was, in essence, one of those luxury cars with breasts.
From red-hot movies to even sexier music videos, Tawny made audiences stand up and take notice.
And when I saw Tawny, I kind of like bowed in reverence and I said, "Good job, God."
In the next hour, we'll follow the trail of a young girl who was determined to be a star and have a good time along the way.
My sister's going, "Mom, isn't Tawny supposed to be going to school today?"
We'll examine Tawny's fascination with the hard-charging men of rock and roll.
He became a pussy-whipped fool of a once incredibly great musician.
And we'll delve into her many romances.
And Dave returns to us and says, I was in bed with her, and I wake up to see OJ's face hovering over me.
Finally, we'll explore Kitaen's problem with prescription drugs.
I knew that it was progressing to a bad place.
And we'll detail the explosive confrontation with her major league husband.
He subsequently had bruisings and some scrapes and marks from the high heels.
This is the story of ambition, adulation, and addiction. This is the story of Tawny Kitaen, the E! True Hollywood Story.
The dream of being one of for life's ambition, recognition, never recovers the public scandal.
Tawny Kitaen never had a problem turning heads. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, the sexy redhead always enjoyed being the center of attention. But in April 2002, Kitaen found herself posing for a different kind of photo, a mugshot. Tawny was behind bars in a jail cell in Newport Beach, California. Police arrested the 40-year-old actress for allegedly assaulting her husband, Major League Baseball pitcher Chuck Finley. In no time, stories began to circulate about Tawny's alleged drug use and wild, erratic behavior. Friends and fans wondered what happened to the once promising actress. Tawny Kitaen was born Julie Kitaen on August 5, 1961 in San Diego, California. Her dad, Terry, worked for a neon sign company. Julie's mother, Linda, was a former beauty queen turned housewife. Julie was still a toddler when she began demonstrating a knack for performing.
When I was little, my mom couldn't get me to eat my food. I was like 2 years old, unless she propped up an album of the Beatles right there, you know? And I would lay down all my Beatles albums and I would sing to them, and it was always in my blood. It was always something that I wanted to do.
Before long, Julie was joined by a younger sister and brother. As the oldest, Julie was a natural leader. Father, Terry Kitaen.
She was always the boss. She was always playing school with her little brother and sister and other kids, and she was always the teacher. She controlled most everything that she did.
At age 3, Julie began taking dance lessons. She loved performing and constantly talked about becoming a star. When she was 14, Julie gave herself a total makeover. She adopted a new first name, Tawny, and she radically altered her hairstyle. Tawny's brother, Jordan Kitaen.
I came in the house and I didn't recognize her at first. And then when I first realized who it was, I was sort of blown away.
The local boys noticed the change too, and the teenager's dating life quickly took off. School became less important to Tawny, especially with the Pacific Ocean and plenty of surfers nearby.
I'm driving down the hill going to school, and my mom and my sister are 3 cars behind. And all of a sudden, my high school is like to the left, and the beach is to the right. And I'm like going to the right, and my sister's going, "Mom, isn't Tawny supposed to be going to school today?"
She felt that she was going to be an entertainer and that school really wasn't going to be that much for her. And I said, "Sweetheart, if you are going to be the star that you're going to be, that you think you're going to be, you've got to at least, you know, take math, you know how to count the money, know how to enter it in a checkbook and take it to the bank. She says no big deal. She's going to have people to do that for her.
In 1978, 17-year-old Tawny dropped out of high school and became a self-described surfer chick. She also found a serious boyfriend, 19-year-old Robin Crosby, an up-and-coming San Diego musician. Tawny and Robin soon moved in together.
The two of them as a couple were this teenage rock and roll royalty in San Diego.
I wanted something better for her, you know, marry a guy with a suit and an 8-to-5 job and comes home with the paycheck each Friday, but that wasn't for her. And Rob, yes, he did have long blonde hair and his guitar, but he was a good guy.
Rob became a co-founder of the successful rock band Rat. But as the guitarist's career started to take off, the couple's relationship came to a crashing halt. Tawny wanted to move to Los Angeles and pursue a showbiz career.
She wanted her fame. She didn't want to, you know, hang on to someone else's coat. So she just went off on her own and did what she had to do.
In 1980, 19-year-old Tawny arrived in Hollywood. Unannounced, she walked into the offices of the Elite modeling agency. Tawny's beauty and confidence impressed Elite's execs, and they offered her a contract on the spot. But at 5'6", Kitaen's height made her a tough sell to clients. Tawny took matters into her own hands when she auditioned for a Sergio Valenti jeans commercial.
They said, sorry, you're too short. So not taking no for an answer, she went next door to a large department store, whatever it was, and bought a pair of Sergio Valenti jeans. She went back in with an air of confidence and said, now take a look, what do you think?
Tawny got the job. In 1982, the model decided to give television a try. The ABC network was looking for new performers and launched the Faces of Tomorrow talent hunt. The judges selected a group that included 20-year-old Tawny, along with up-and-coming comic Arsenio Hall. For Tawny, being chosen provided sweet satisfaction.
All these models that I could never get a job over, you know, were up against me for this one position at ABC, and I was the one who got it.
Former publicist Michael Levine met Kitaen when the winners were unveiled at a press conference.
Tawny was clearly beautiful, clearly charismatic, and clearly motivated.
In 1983, Tawny made her acting debut on the TV miniseries Malibu. Tawny's career was in high gear, and so was her social life. She dated Tommy Lee of the band Motley Crue and hung out with the boys of Van Halen. Former rocker and longtime friend Michael DeBar.
She was the one that the lead singer in any, you know, current hit band would go, that would look perfect next to me.
Tawny was enjoying life in the fast lane, but for Tawny, fast wasn't nearly fast enough. Coming up, a wild bachelor party.
I knew from the first set of dailies that we had lightning in a bottle.
And later,
I would refer to her as the Yoko Ono of Whitesnake.
By 1983, 22-year-old Tawny Kitaen was taking a walk on the wild side, hanging out with rock stars and partying hard. The kitten was ready to roar.
She was incredible, especially in that scene where she's dressed in lingerie. It was really nice to have her walking around all day dressed that way.
In early 1983, Tawny landed the lead role in the French action-adventure film Gwendolen. The director cast Kitaen after seeing her picture in a modeling catalog.
I was like, you know, handed a passport and this money and said, you know, do you want to do this film? And it was like, Paris, Africa, the Philippines, sure, let's go, let's do it.
The B movie was hardly memorable, except for one thing. Tawny appeared au naturel. Kitaen's dad wasn't pleased.
Here she is in a few nude scenes, you know, and I just, you know, I don't want to look.
In late 1983, Tawny returned to the States, exhausted from the shoot. But the actress didn't have much time to relax.
Her agent, she had a knockdown drag out, and her agent said, we have an audition for you, you've got to go. They went back and forth, and finally she said, okay.
Kitaen was being considered for the comedy Bachelor Party. The movie was supposed to star Paul Reiser and Kelly McGillis, but executives at Fox decided the actors lacked chemistry. Production was shut down while the movie was recast. Tom Hanks landed the lead role, but director Neil Israel still needed an actress to play Hank's fiancée.
We were down to the wire, and maybe the last person in the door was this amazing redhead with a mane. She was like a lioness. She had this incredible radiance about her. It was like the sun was following her.
Tawny signed on for the role, co-star Adrian Zmed.
She was having a blast, and I think she knew this opportunity that she was in, and she was really taking advantage of it.
Tawny spent part of the movie dressed in a very sexy and revealing outfit. The cast and crew couldn't stop staring.
She was the beautiful woman that men pursued and fell all over and lusted after. And she liked that position.
But Tawny was less confident shooting a scene in which her character thinks her fiancé has been unfaithful.
She has to say, "You lied to me, it's over." And she had a lot of trouble with that. Up to that point, I don't think anybody ever rejected her. I don't think she'd ever been dumped. I don't think anybody ever did anything that she could relate to this moment. And that was a tough one for her, and I really had to draw it out of her.
Bachelor Party was released in June 1984. The movie became the 19th highest grossing film of that year, earning a whopping $38.5 million. Tawny achieved her childhood dream. She was a star.
I think I was with my mother, and we went to see a movie, and I think someone, like a couple of people behind, said, "Oh my God, that's that girl at Bachelor Party." And I was just like, oh, yes.
Tawny began working steadily. She became a regular on the soap opera Capital. She also did a variety of TV and theatrical movies. Tawny continued to date. One very close friend was former football star O.J. Simpson, who was married at the time. Tawny's friends and family have little to say about the relationship.
She never really talked about it too much. I mean, we didn't really go there.
Tawny, I know, was very good friends with him in those days. We didn't discuss it that much.
In 1986, another man caught Tawny's attention. David Coverdale was the 34-year-old lead singer of the heavy metal group Whitesnake. Band member Rudy Sarzo.
Late one night, he was watching TV, and Bachelor Party came on. He saw her and wanted to get in touch with her, meet her.
Fate intervened when the British rocker and the sexy actress bumped into each other at Le Dome, a trendy Hollywood restaurant. Sparks flew, and they began dating. In 1987, Coverdale attended a meeting to discuss the filming of 3 new music videos for his band. The singer brought Tawny along. The director spotted Kitaen and immediately cast her as the group's object of desire. When bass player Rudy Sarzo showed up to shoot the first video, Tawny seemed to melt into the background.
She was very quiet, very professional, sitting there reading her book, waiting for her shot.
But as the cameras rolled, Tawny unleashed her sexuality. Kitaen displayed one sultry move after another. Tawny and Coverdale sizzled, both on screen and off. But Tawny was still generating some heat with O.J. Simpson. Coverdale and Simpson finally met each other under very awkward circumstances. Years later, the rocker revealed the details to his bandmates.
We were watching on TV the whole O.J. in the Bronco being chased by all the police cars, and David turns to us and says, "You know what? When I was first dating Tawny, I was in bed with her, and I wake up to see O.J.'s face hovering over me."
Coverdale claimed he and O.J. wound up having a civil cup of tea together. The singer considered recreating the incident for the band's next music video.
He goes to his manager and says, "Who is this O.J. Simpson?" Because him being from England, he didn't know anything about American sports. And his manager says, "Stay away from him. This guy can be trouble."
But Simpson was out of the picture. Tawny now concentrated full time on David Coverdale, and the feeling was mutual.
Once he started going out with Tawny, it was just Tawny, 24/7.
Coming up, Tawny takes over.
Even though I signed him, I was an outsider. She was in his bed. I was not.
In 1987, 25-year-old Tawny Kitaen teamed with the band Whitesnake for a series of sexy music videos. She also shared a bed with lead singer David Coverdale. But some band members and music executives felt Tawny exerted too much influence on the group's frontman.
He became a pussy-whipped fool of a once incredibly great musician.
In September 1987, the music for the Whitesnake song Here I Go Again became a big hit on MTV. Viewers loved Tawny's eye-popping moves on top of a Jaguar. Kitaen's father recalls a near riot while driving with Tawny and David Coverdale down the Sunset Strip in the infamous white car.
And David says, "Quick, get out of here, they're running toward us." And we're looking outside the windows and people are actually jumping on cars, over cars, getting out there yelling, "There's Tawny, there's Tawny."
Coverdale and Tawny moved in together soon after shooting the videos. Despite their hard rock image, the couple often maintained a low profile.
They like to keep to themselves, quiet dinners, candlelight dinners, going to nice restaurants, very stay home a lot.
As the relationship progressed, Tawny became more involved with David's career. Music executive John Kolodner.
She brought about changes in the band's direction by her direct influence on David Coverdale about who he should work with. Maybe he should write the songs himself.
I mean, some of the suggestions were not bad at all. It's just that they didn't come from the people that would hire to make those suggestions.
She was a great, smart manipulator.
Tawny put her acting career on the back burner and joined Coverdale when Whitesnake went on tour. The band packed in the fans, but backstage the atmosphere began to get tense.
The rest of the band members definitely were wary of her and knew that she had big control and were really pissed off about it.
Despite the sour notes, Tawny and David began to hear wedding bells. On February 17, 1989, the 37-year-old rocker and the 27-year-old actress married in Los Angeles.
He was deeply, madly in love with her. I truly believe, especially at the very beginning, that Tawny was in love with David too. But if you ask me who in the relationship had more love for the other person, it was definitely David.
Tawny enjoyed the perks of being Mrs. Coverdale.
Ask any young lady if they'd like to travel around the world in private jets and buy anything they wanted. Yeah, she loved it.
She had a certain fantasy of what it would be like to be married to a rock star, and I think that she just pushed it to the extreme. When the band would stay at the Four Seasons, that wasn't good enough for her. She had to stay at the Ritz.
Even Tawny and David's cats lived the high life.
They had a couple of cats that would travel with them, and when the cats have to be shipped back home, the cats had their own limo picking them up at the airport. And they had to be the right color limousine, otherwise it's going to be sent back.
In November 1989, Whitesnake released their next album, Slip of the Tongue. Coverdale's lyrics seemed to sum up his relationship with Tawny. The song Kitten's Got Claws featured the line, "You've got the world in your pocket, my manhood locked in your purse."
He became very dominated by her, which I think he provoked, inspired, and wanted.
Tawny frequently offered suggestions regarding the band's business and artistic affairs. Whitesnake continued to rack up impressive record sales. By the spring of 1990, the group sold 11 million albums. That summer, Coverdale and the band embarked on a European concert tour.
He had announced to the band that this tour was going to be the final Whitesnake tour for a while. He wanted to raise a family.
But trouble erupted after a concert in Spain. Tawny suddenly left the tour and the marriage.
It happened very, very fast. One day Tawny was there, and then the next day she was gone.
It was just that simple. It was like, something from the Soviet era. She was erased from history just like Stalin was. She just was erased from the history.
Coverdale never revealed to band members why he and Tawny called it quits. Kitaen gave her own reasons for the breakup.
If we were to have a relationship, someone had to give the time. Since his career really was the prominent one in our relationship at the time, it was my decision and his decision to have me quit, so to speak, put everything on hold and follow him. And, you know, I think as a woman gets older, you realize that really isn't such a cool thing to do.
The couple filed for divorce in August 1990. Tawny returned to Los Angeles to concentrate on her career. But the actress who was once named a face of tomorrow had a tough time finding work. Former publicist Michael Levine.
I think that was a period in which she was really trying to make some sense of that particular feeling about disappointment and frustration that opportunities had passed her by.
That same summer, friends tried to get Tawny back in the dating game. They set her up on a blind date with 27-year-old Chuck Finley, the star pitcher of the Anaheim Angels baseball team. Tawny sat in the stands to check Finley out. Chuck, meanwhile, conducted his own reconnaissance. Baseball writer John Weiler.
What he was doing during the game was watching her in the stands, but he had put his cap on so that it looked like he was pointing at the field, so from far away it looked like he was watching the field, but he was really checking out his blind date.
The soft-spoken country boy from Louisiana and the California actress hit it off.
Opposites attract often, and they definitely were two completely different people. She was very aggressive, being in the business she was into and selling herself, and Chuck was the complete opposite, just wanted to go hunting coons barefoot in the creek.
We got this sort of healthy carrot juice drinking jock boy coming to Christmas instead of someone who wears hairspray.
Chuck proposed to Tawny on Valentine's Day 1991, but only a few months later the couple decided to call it quits. According to Tawny, the relationship became too intense. Again, Kitaen focused on her career. That summer, she landed a starring role on the syndicated TV series The New WKRP in Cincinnati. Tawny also found herself in demand on the dating scene, and she was determined to play the field. Coming up.
At that point, they said, you know, this is crazy. We're both adults. We're not involved with anyone. And they just let it all hang out.
By 1991, 29-year-old Tawny Kitaen left a trail of men in her wake. That year, she divorced rocker David Coverdale and broke off her engagement to pro baseball player Chuck Finley. Tawny was back in the dating game, and admirers were definitely not in short supply.
I think she completely understood that she was, in essence, one of those luxury cars with breasts. Yet another accoutrement for some impotent mogul.
In the fall of 1991, LA's most desirable bachelors couldn't wait to take Tawny out. On the set of the new WKRP in Cincinnati, Tawny's suitors had to take a number.
Outside her trailer looked like a luxury car lot, okay? There was every conceivable sports car and limousine backed up.
One of the contenders was 36-year-old sitcom star Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry was Tawny's neighbor on the CBS studio back lot.
There he was, you know, standing in the bleachers, like every other man on the lot, gazing at Tawny Kitaen.
Tawny and Jerry became friends. Seinfeld biographer Jerry Oppenheimer.
They run into each other every day on the parking lot and outside their trailers, and they began talking and chatting and flirting.
Jerry decided to cast Kitaen in an episode of Seinfeld.
Tawny met the profile of the character he needed for that particular show, which was the, quote, bimbo hottie. And it becomes a very funny episode in that his brain and his sexual organs start debating whether or not he should continue this relationship.
Soon after filming the episode, Jerry and Tawny began dating.
They would take trips up the coast and spend time at small hotels and just get away for romantic weekends together.
According to Oppenheimer, Seinfeld was fascinated by Kitaen's bad girl past.
He would ask her hour upon hour to tell her about what life was like in the heavy metal world of rock and roll.
At first, the couple tried to keep their romance quiet.
They would not hold hands, they wouldn't hug, they wouldn't kiss. I think their general feeling was there's too much gossip here. You know, once someone sees us holding hands or snuggling, it's going to wind up in the National Enquirer. So they kept it a secret.
But in April 1992, Jerry Seinfeld revealed his secret on the Howard Stern radio show. The tabloids couldn't get enough of the comedian and the sex kitten.
He was thrilled because he saw that it was giving him a whole new image in the public eye. And the first thing he did was call his mother and said, Mom, pick up the Inquirer. Tawny and I, there's a story about Tawny and I in it.
The romance was going strong, but in May 1992, Kitaen received a surprising phone call. It was Tawny's old flame, baseball pitcher Chuck Finley.
Chuck called and left a message on Tawny's answering machine saying he wanted to see her again. And without Jerry's knowledge, Tawny and Chuck got back together.
The quiet country ball player and the rock and roll chick realized they were ready for a second go-round. Tawny's sister-in-law, Kim Kitaen.
She seemed like she was looking for something different in her life, and she seemed very happy, you know, when she found it. So maybe she wanted to break from the rock and roll life.
Tawny broke the news to Jerry.
He was thrilled that she really was back with the man she truly was in love with, and he wished her well and did not take it badly.
In June 1992, shortly after Finley and Kitaen got back together, the 30-year-old discovered she was pregnant. Tawny was shocked. She told Chuck during a trip to Las Vegas.
Yeah, he was surprised that they weren't trying at that time.
I think, you know, like a lot of women, you know, she'd come to a period in her life, you know, when she really wanted to, you know, experience motherhood, you know, rather than mothering a rock star.
Pregnancy didn't slow Tawny down one bit. In August 1992, the star accepted a second television job, co-hosting the ABC series America's Funniest People. Co-host Dave Coulier.
When she first showed up, she told me, she said, I'm pregnant, so don't tell anybody. And then as the show progressed, she got bigger and bigger and bigger, and we would try and hide it with these bigger outfits, and she is great.
But back at home, things weren't quite as great. Chuck Finley was thrilled about becoming a father, but becoming a husband was another matter.
Julie was ready to get married, and Chuck was happy with the way things were going.
Coming up, picture perfect.
Tawny got down on her knee and asked Chuck to marry her, and there was just kind of a dead silence.
By late 1992, Tawny Kitaen's romantic resume included a marriage to a rock star and an affair with a famous comedian. Now, Tawny was pregnant by a big league ball player. The 31-year-old one-time sex kitten looked to change her wild ways.
She was not hiding the fact that she wanted to get married.
On March 18, 1993, Tawny gave birth to a daughter, Winter Marin Finley. The actress's priorities suddenly shifted.
Once she had that baby Winter, then her career came second.
Being a mother to me is the most important thing in the whole world. Being a parent is the most important thing.
Tawny and Chuck moved from their condo to a new home in Newport Beach. At first, Tawny looked forward to one day marrying Finley, but the actress developed a case of cold feet. And in 1994, the couple split up. Kitaen went off to New Zealand to guest star in the popular syndicated series Hercules. She also started dating comedian Jon Stewart. But after a few months, Tawny and Chuck decided to reconcile. Kitaen realized she did want to marry Finley. However, as the years went by, a wedding date failed to materialize. Chuck seemed content just living with Tawny.
This was in '96, and I asked her, well, you know, what about marriage? And her first response was sort of kiddingly, he's made me wait so long, I'm going to say no if he does ever ask me. But then she immediately said, I'm sitting here thinking about why this hasn't happened, and she said, I really don't know, I think it will, but Chuck's such a guy's guy that maybe he thinks only wussies get married.
We had some pretty good heart-to-heart discussions, but he assured me that he loved her and everything was going to be fine.
But Kitaen was tired of waiting. She decided to take matters into her own hands. In August 1997, Chuck threw a surprise party for Tawny's 36th birthday. But it was Finley who received the bigger surprise.
Tawny got down on her knee and asked Chuck to marry her, and Chuck there's just kind of a dead silence.
He had no clue what to say. It was almost like a 3-2, bottom of the ninth, and he's gonna throw one at the guy's head. He didn't really say anything, but I think silence was the answer.
She didn't miss a beat. She just said, well, I know how to blow a good party, or,
It made me feel quite uncomfortable because I didn't really know at that time what his real intentions were.
2 months later, Finley finally proposed during a visit with his parents in Louisiana. Tawny and Chuck were married on November 20th, 1997, in an elaborate ceremony in Hawaii.
It was just a perfect environment and a perfect setting, and she looked beautiful. It was just a fairy tale wedding.
Tawny relished her new role as a baseball wife.
They traveled all around to all the cities playing ball, and then they decided to have another child, and this is really what she wanted. She was, at that point, all about being a mom.
On June 1st, 1998, Tawny and Chuck welcomed their second daughter, Rainey. The couple seemed happy and in love, but Chuck's baseball schedule was grueling, and he spent a lot of time on the road.
It was very difficult because she just wanted to be with him. It was difficult on her, it was difficult on the children.
In December 1999, Finley signed a 3-year, multi-million-dollar deal with the Cleveland Indians. During the season, Chuck lived in Ohio. Tawny stayed in California with the kids.
After a while, it did get to her, and she said it was very difficult living with someone who's, not there a lot, who's out of town a lot.
Julie just needed more warmth and affection. Not that she didn't get some, but some people need more than others. And Chuck was a macho guy, and he doesn't show, at least out in public, his warmth and affection. And I think that she just needed more of this because he was gone.
For 8 months of the year, Finley was on the road. Kitaen was lonely, and there was another problem. Following the birth of her second child, Tawny suffered from severe headaches.
That's when we noticed the prescription drugs. She got migraines a lot, and so she was prescribed migraine medication. And then she was prescribed other medication for ailments she had.
Kitaen began to rely more and more on her medication. Her behavior started to change. Paul Wright is a friend of Chuck Finley's.
You can just see her nodding off. You can see a slurred speech, wavering back and forth, and just basically incoherent.
Tawny's husband and her family decided the actress needed help. They convinced her to enter rehab facilities in Las Vegas and Phoenix, but Kitaen failed to overcome her addiction. Tawny's sister-in-law, Kim Kitaen, came home one night to find Tawny's sister and brother huddled around the actress.
And she was crying, and they were all having this really serious moment together, and I knew that it was progressing to a bad place.
In 2001, 40-year-old Tawny Kitaen, the one-time darling of MTV music videos, was a wife and mother living in beautiful Newport Beach, California. But Tawny's seemingly ideal existence was being torn apart by a growing addiction.
She was on her prescription drugs. She was a different person.
By late 2001, Tawny Kitaen was taking a variety of prescribed drugs. According to court documents submitted by her husband, the list included painkillers, antidepressants, and migraine medication. Family members described Tawny as often being sleepy and sometimes moody and irritable. On December 13, 2001, Kitaen drove to a shopping center near her home. Tawny pulled into the parking lot. According to police reports, Kitaen found one space partially blocked by a woman trying to help her children out of an SUV. Lindsay Jackson is manager of the Queen Bee, a nearby boutique.
I guess Tawny wanted the spot next to her, and she couldn't fit her Range Rover in the space with the Suburban a quarter of the way in her parking spot, so she had to park 4 cars down. And I guess she was real ticked about it.
The woman and her children walked over to the Queen Bee. According to witnesses, Kitaen allegedly scratched one side of the Suburban with a key and then followed the family into the boutique. Lindsay Jackson described to police what happened next.
Tawny walks in the store and immediately starts saying, "You stole my spot, you this, you that." I mean, yelling profanities at this woman.
The alleged tirade continued for a few minutes until Kitaen decided to leave.
And then as Tawny walked out the door, she said, "I hope you like your car." I just saw her walk over to the Suburban, walk past it, and then walk down the other way. And I thought, well, maybe she left her a nasty note in her car. I didn't really know what she did until the girls from the salon upstairs came downstairs and said, "Who drives a black Suburban?" And the lady said, "I do." And she said, "A woman just keyed your car, got into a white Range Rover. We have her license plate number, and we've already called the police."
Tawny was charged with malicious damage, a misdemeanor. Kitaen pleaded not guilty. According to a spokesperson for the district attorney, the case was dismissed after the victim notified the court that she had been compensated for $4,600 worth of damage done to her vehicle.
She was on prescription drugs during that time, and she just did some really crazy things, and she is sorry, very apologetic that she did that, and remorseful.
4 months later, Kitaen found herself in trouble again. On April 1st, 2002, Tawny and Chuck dined at a steakhouse in Irvine, California. Finley was reportedly tired of his wife's behavior.
This is the mother of your children, somebody that's supposed to be a mother figure, and they're on drugs. You know, this is not any way to have your kids see this, and I think he just got to a point and just fed up and had to do something for his kids.
According to a source close to the ball player, Finley issued an ultimatum. Tawny needed to clean up her act or Chuck would seek custody of the children. Kitaen's family describes a different discussion.
Chuck had mentioned in that restaurant that he wanted a divorce, and she didn't want one, and she pleaded with him.
She was hysterical. She was, why? Let's talk about this, etc., etc.
The argument, I guess, continued into the car. She just wanted to be given another chance to prove herself, that she could be a good wife, and he wasn't giving it to her.
According to police, Kitaen became violent during the drive back to Newport Beach. Police spokesman Stephen Schulman.
She turned toward him and used her high heels to kick him. And he subsequently had bruisings and some scrapes and marks from the high heels.
The argument continued when they arrived home. Both Tawny and the Finley's nanny called the police.
The officer goes out and listens to both sides of the story and tries to determine what the truth is and who the aggressor is. And in this particular case, it happened to be Ms. Kitaen.
Tawny was arrested for spousal abuse and taken to the Newport Beach City Jail, where she was fingerprinted. Bail was set at $25,000. Kitaen was then transferred to the Orange County Jail. Tawny's family didn't find out about the incident for 2 days.
The thing that I didn't really like was she had one call while she was in jail, and she called Chuck. And Chuck could have got her out. Her family did not know that she was in jail till she was released, and it was in the papers.
As Kitaen sat in her cell, inmates and guards asked for autographs. Tawny contemplated her future.
That is when she knew she had to change 180 degrees, because she never wanted to go back to that place again.
Tawny was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of domestic violence. She pled not guilty. Kitaen's father doesn't believe Tawny was physically capable of hurting her husband.
Chuck's about 6'7", 245. She's about 5'5", 125. It's kind of tough, I think, to have somebody that small batter or beat somebody that big.
According to police, Tawny claimed Chuck was the aggressor.
She also indicated that she was touched by him as he was by her, but there was no indication, no physical indication that that had taken place.
After her release on April 3, 2002, an Orange County Superior Court judge issued a restraining order barring Tawny from any contact with Finley. Chuck also filed for divorce and took his daughters to live with him in Cleveland. Tawny was devastated. She turned to her family for help.
The family wanted her to take care of herself, but she never thought that she had this problem. My wife and I went up there, and she checked herself into a place that takes care of people that have problems.
Tawny spent 30 days at the Promises Drug and Alcohol Rehabilitation Center in Malibu.
For somebody for whom things have come very easy throughout their life, sometimes it really does take a hard knock to wake them up.
Tawny takes control.
It's a matter of her convincing other people to forget about what came before, and look who she is now.
In April 2002, 40-year-old Tawny Kitaen was charged with spousal abuse, lost custody of her children, and checked into drug rehab. The one-time rock and roll vixen was forced to take a hard look in the mirror.
The secret to that is to learn from it and grow from it. And she's done this.
By the summer of 2002, Tawny Kitaen was focused on leading a drug-free life. Tawny leaned on others for support.
She goes to meetings almost every night. She goes to all kinds of functions with people that have had problems. She's just a real different person. She's really got her act together now.
She just wants to look at things positively now and think about what she can do to always improve herself and improve her life.
In July 2002, Tawny and Chuck Finley went to court to end their marriage and determine custody of their two daughters. The legal battle was ugly. Finley and the family's nanny, Pam Sheik, filed declarations accusing Tawny of drug abuse and erratic behavior. Tawny fired back, charging Finley with being a frequently absent parent who smoked marijuana, used steroids, and was sometimes violent. Then on September 17, 2002, Kitaen filed a $12 million lawsuit accusing Finley of breach of contract. Tawny claimed that in exchange for giving up her acting career to become a full-time mom, Chuck had promised to support Kitaen financially for life. In late September 2002, the couple's divorce case had yet to be settled. The custody of their children was also undecided. That month, a court agreed to drop charges of spousal abuse against Tawny. The conditions included requirements that Kitaen undergo anger management counseling and avoid contact with Finley for 3 years. From her breakout performance in Bachelor Party to her eye-popping music videos, Tawny Kitaen was one of the most outrageous sex symbols of the 1980s and 90s. Friends and family are confident that the former bad girl can do it all over again.
She's already bounced back. The great thing about Tawny Kitaen is her resilience.
I think she definitely wants to get back in show business, and I think she'd be great at it. She's a great actress.
It's a matter of her convincing other people to forget about what came before, and look who she is now.
Whatever Julie wants, she's going to obtain. She's strong. She's got perseverance. It'll happen good.
I think I'll be depressed if I ever get stuck in one thing. Like if I just was the girl in Bachelor Party, or if I just was the girl in Whitesnake. And I think as I evolve and as a person and as an actress, I get labeled something else. And as long as I keep getting labeled different things every once in a while, I don't care. I'm cool about it. I enjoy working. I do what I do, and when I'm not doing it, I'm doing something else.